Have you ever started your morning believing you were doing something healthy for your body, only to discover later that the very habit you trusted might quietly be harming your kidneys? It's a difficult thought to accept, especially for people who try their best to eat well, stay active, and take care of themselves as they grow older. Yet in my years working with patients over 60, I've seen a surprising pattern again and again. Individuals who thought they were making smart, heart-healthy food choices only to end up with blood tests showing something deeply concerning: rising potassium levels, strained kidney function, and in some cases, heart rhythm disturbances that seem to appear out of nowhere. I'm Dr. Mark Ellis, and today I want to talk about a food that most people would never suspect. In fact, it's praised in magazines, recommended in healthy diet plans, and served in kitchens across America every single day. But when the body begins to age, when kidney filtration naturally slows down, this seemingly innocent food can become far more complicated than most people realize. Now, before you worry, let me be very clear about something important. This isn't about fear, and it certainly isn't about eliminating foods you enjoy. The real issue is understanding how certain foods interact with an aging body, especially when medications, blood pressure changes, and kidney function all come into play. Because sometimes the danger isn't the food itself. Sometimes the real problem lies in how we combine it, how much we consume, and what our body is already dealing with beneath the surface. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share 3 surprisingly common ways this food is combined in everyday meals that can quietly place extra stress on the kidneys, particularly for adults over 60. More importantly, I'll also show you a much safer way to prepare and enjoy it so you can still benefit from its nutrients without putting unnecessary strain on one of the most important organs in your body. And if you or someone you love is trying to stay healthy, stay independent, and avoid the frightening possibility of dialysis later in life, then this is information you'll want to hear all the way through. Because sometimes protecting your kidneys doesn't require expensive treatments or complicated diets. It simply begins with understanding one small habit at the dinner table. When we talk about kidney health, many people imagine a sudden illness, something dramatic that appears overnight. But in reality, kidney strain usually begins much earlier and much more quietly. It often starts with the natural process of aging. By the time most adults reach their 60s, the kidneys are no longer working with the same strength they had decades earlier. These 2 small organs filter the blood every minute of every day, removing waste-balancing fluids and regulating minerals that are essential for life. Yet medical research shows that after about the age of 40, the kidney's filtration ability, known as the glomerular filtration rate, or GFR, gradually begins to decline. By the time someone reaches 60 or 70, the kidneys may be operating with significantly less reserve than they once had. This change is a normal part of biology, but it also means the body becomes less efficient at removing certain minerals from the bloodstream. One of the most important of these minerals is potassium. Potassium plays a critical role in the body. It helps nerves communicate, allows muscles to contract, and most importantly, it helps regulate the rhythm of the heart. In younger people with strong kidney function, any excess potassium from food is filtered out smoothly through urine. The system works almost effortlessly. However, when kidney filtration slows with age, that balance becomes more delicate. The body may still absorb potassium from foods very efficiently, but the kidneys may not remove it as quickly as before. Over time, if someone frequently consumes large amounts of potassium-rich foods, those levels can slowly begin to rise in the bloodstream. And when potassium levels climb too high, they can interfere with the electrical signals that control the heartbeat, sometimes leading to fatigue, muscle weakness, or irregular heart rhythms. This is where tomatoes enter the conversation. Tomatoes are widely considered a healthy food, and in many ways they are. They contain antioxidants, vitamins, and compounds that support heart health. But tomatoes are also naturally rich in potassium. A single medium tomato can contain around 250 to 300 milligrams of potassium, and larger servings like tomato juice or sauces can deliver much more in a short period of time. For younger individuals, this is rarely a concern. But for older adults whose kidneys are filtering more slowly, repeatedly consuming high potassium foods without balance can quietly place extra stress on the body's filtration system. Understanding this does not mean tomatoes are dangerous. It simply means that the aging body requires a little more awareness and moderation than it once did. And surprisingly, the bigger risk often isn't the tomato itself, It's the way tomatoes are commonly combined with other foods in everyday meals. But knowing this alone isn't enough because the next combination is something millions of people eat every single day without realizing the hidden strain it can place on their kidneys. Now that we understand how aging kidneys become more sensitive to minerals like potassium, the next piece of the puzzle is something far more practical: how foods are combined in everyday meals. Because surprisingly, one of the most common habits that quietly increases kidney strain isn't a fast food binge or sugary dessert. It's something that appears in breakfast sandwiches, quick lunches, and even meals people believe are healthy raw tomatoes, paired with processed meats. At first glance, this combination seems perfectly balanced. A slice of tomato adds freshness, vitamins, and color, while the meat provides protein and flavor. Many people even believe they are improving the meal by adding vegetables. But inside the body, the chemistry tells a different story. Tomatoes naturally contain potassium, which, as we discussed earlier, can already be harder for aging kidneys to regulate. Processed meats, on the other hand, often contain very high amounts of sodium and added inorganic phosphorus, two compounds widely used in the food industry to preserve texture, flavor, and shelf life. The challenge is that inorganic phosphorus from processed foods is absorbed by the body extremely efficiently. Sometimes up to 90% of it enters the bloodstream. When that happens, the kidneys must work harder to filter and remove these excess minerals. Meanwhile, the sodium in processed meats can raise blood pressure, and high blood pressure remains one of the leading causes of long-term kidney damage. When potassium from tomatoes enters the bloodstream at the same time, the kidneys suddenly face multiple mineral loads at once, forcing an aging filtration system to work even harder. I once spoke with a patient named Michael, a retired accountant in his mid-60s, who believed he had developed the perfect healthy lunch. Every afternoon, he prepared a turkey sandwich with fresh tomato slices and deli meat. It looked light, simple, and nutritious. But during a routine checkup, his lab tests showed early signs of kidney stress and elevated blood pressure. When we examined his daily diet more closely, we realized that the repeated combination of processed meats and potassium-rich foods was quietly increasing the workload on his kidneys day after day. This doesn't mean tomatoes are harmful, and it certainly doesn't mean you must avoid sandwiches forever. The key lesson is awareness. Choosing fresh protein sources such as grilled chicken, fish, or plant-based options can significantly reduce the sodium and phosphorus burden while still allowing tomatoes to remain part of a balanced meal. Small adjustments like this can make a meaningful difference over the long term. But here's the surprising part: even this common food pairing isn't the mistake doctors worry about most. In fact, the next habit is far more widespread, and many people consider it completely harmless. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor that may be even more concerning. After learning about the strain that processed meats can place on the kidneys, when combined with tomatoes, many people assume the problem is solved. They simply avoid deli meats and feel confident that tomatoes remain a completely harmless food. But there is another habit far more common and surprisingly overlooked that may quietly create stress inside the body over time. It's something simple, nostalgic, and familiar to many people: fresh tomato slices sprinkled with white sugar. For many households, this combination feels innocent. Tomatoes are natural and refreshing, while a little sugar softens their acidity and enhances the flavor. Some people even remember it as a childhood snack, something light and comforting rather than unhealthy. But when we look at what happens inside the body, especially in adults over 60, the science tells a more complicated story. The key issue lies in refined sugar. Unlike the natural sugars found inside whole fruits, refined sugar enters the bloodstream extremely quickly. When someone eats tomatoes covered in sugar, the body absorbs that sugar almost immediately, causing a rapid spike in blood glucose levels. In younger individuals with strong metabolic flexibility, insulin can quickly bring those levels back down. But as we age, insulin sensitivity often declines, meaning blood sugar may remain elevated longer than it should. When glucose stays high in the bloodstream, it triggers a process known as glycation. During this process, sugar molecules attach themselves to proteins and fats in the body, forming compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These compounds are strongly associated with inflammation and damage to the body's smallest blood vessels. And this is where the kidneys become vulnerable. Each kidney contains around 1 million tiny filtration units called glomeruli, delicate networks of microscopic blood vessels responsible for cleaning the blood. Over time, the buildup of AGEs can cause these tiny vessels to stiffen and thicken. When that happens, the filters become less efficient and valuable proteins may begin leaking into the urine, often one of the earliest warning signs of kidney stress. What makes this habit so deceptive is that it feels healthy. People think they are choosing a light snack rather than a dessert. Yet the body doesn't distinguish between sugar sprinkled on tomatoes and sugar in candy or soda. From a metabolic perspective, it is still refined sugar entering the bloodstream. The good news is that the solution is simple. Tomatoes can still be enjoyed in their natural form or paired with herbs, olive oil, or other savory ingredients that enhance flavor without triggering sharp spikes in blood sugar. Small adjustments like these can help protect the delicate blood vessels that support kidney function. But even this widely overlooked habit is not the most dangerous mistake people make with tomatoes. In fact, the final combination involves something millions of adults take every day: their blood pressure medication. And the interaction between that medication and tomatoes is something far fewer people know about. But knowing this alone isn't enough, because there is another factor that may be even more concerning. The final and most concerning situation involves something that millions of adults over 60 rely on every single day: blood pressure medication. High blood pressure is one of the most common health conditions as people age, and medications such as ACE inhibitors and ARB drugs, including medicines like lisinopril, enalapril, or losartan, are widely prescribed to protect the heart, reduce the risk of stroke, and slow the progression of kidney disease. These medications are extremely important and often life-saving. However, they also change the way the body handles certain minerals, particularly potassium. To understand why this matters, remember what we discussed earlier about tomatoes. Tomatoes naturally contain a significant amount of potassium. In normal portions, this is usually not a problem. But when tomatoes are blended into juice, people often consume several tomatoes at once without realizing it. A single large glass of tomato juice can easily contain the potassium equivalent of 3 or 4 whole tomatoes, delivering a very concentrated dose in just a few minutes. ACE inhibitors and ARB medications work by relaxing blood vessels and lowering pressure inside the circulatory system. This helps protect both the heart and the kidneys. But one side effect of these medications is that they can reduce the kidney's ability to remove potassium efficiently. When someone taking these medications regularly drinks potassium-rich beverages like tomato juice, potassium can begin to accumulate in the bloodstream. Doctors call this condition hyperkalemia, or high potassium levels in the blood. Potassium is essential for life because it helps regulate the electrical activity of muscles in the heart. But when levels rise too high, the electrical signals controlling the heartbeat can become unstable. This can lead to symptoms such as fatigue, muscle weakness, tingling sensations, or irregular heart rhythms. In severe cases, dangerously high potassium levels can even trigger serious cardiac arrhythmias. I once treated a patient named Daniel, a retired teacher in his late 60s, who was extremely disciplined about his health. Every morning he took his prescribed blood pressure medication and followed it with a large glass of fresh tomato juice, believing he was doing something beneficial for his heart. What he didn't realize was that this daily routine was quietly raising his potassium levels over time. When he arrived at the clinic complaining of unusual weakness and heart palpitations, blood tests revealed potassium levels well above the safe range. Fortunately, we were able to treat the situation quickly and bring his potassium back to normal. But Daniel's experience highlights something very important. Sometimes the issue is not a single food or a single medication, it is the interaction between the two. Tomatoes are not the enemy, and blood pressure medications are essential for many people. The key is understanding how they work together inside the body. If you or someone you love takes blood pressure medication, it is worth speaking with a healthcare professional about potassium intake and having potassium levels checked during routine blood tests. Moderation and awareness can prevent small dietary habits from becoming larger health problems over time. And the surprising part is that once people understand these hidden risks, protecting kidney health often becomes much simpler. Because the goal isn't to eliminate tomatoes from your life, it's to learn how to enjoy them in a way that supports your body instead of overloading it. And that brings us to the most empowering part of this discussion: the simple habits that can help keep your kidneys healthy for many years to come. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one important reminder: your kidneys are incredibly loyal organs. They work quietly every minute of your life, filtering your blood, balancing minerals, protecting your heart, and removing toxins without ever asking for attention. The problem is that kidney damage often develops silently. Many people don't notice anything unusual until the kidneys have already lost a large portion of their function. That is why awareness matters so much. The good news is that protecting your kidneys rarely requires extreme diets or complicated treatments. In many cases, it simply begins with small, thoughtful decisions every day, being mindful of how foods are combined, limiting excess sugar, and processed foods, paying attention to potassium if you are taking certain medications, and scheduling regular health checkups so potential problems can be detected early. If today's information helped you understand your body a little better, I encourage you to save this video so you can come back to it later. You may also want to share it with a friend or a family member, because many kidney problems develop quietly, and the knowledge you've learned today could help someone else avoid serious health complications in the future. And if you would like to continue learning simple, practical medical insights that help protect your kidneys, your heart, and your long-term health, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Every new video is designed to give you clear, research-based guidance so you can make confident decisions about your well-being. Most importantly, never underestimate the power of informed choices. A healthy future rarely depends on one dramatic change. It grows from small habits practiced consistently over time. By staying curious, staying informed, and caring for your body with intention, you are giving your kidneys the support they need to serve you well for many years ahead. And that means more energy, more independence, and more time to enjoy life with the people who matter most. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one important reminder. Your kidneys are incredibly loyal organs. They work quietly every minute of your life, filtering your blood, balancing minerals, protecting your heart, and removing toxins without ever asking for attention. The problem is that kidney damage often develops silently. Many people don't notice anything unusual until the kidneys have already lost a large portion of their function. That is why awareness matters so much. The good news is that protecting your kidneys rarely requires extreme diets or complicated treatments. In many cases, it simply begins with small, thoughtful decisions every day, being mindful of how foods are combined, limiting excess sugar, and processed foods, paying attention to potassium if you are taking certain medications, and scheduling regular health checkups so potential problems can be detected early. If today's information helped you understand your body a little better, I encourage you to save this video so you can come back to it later. You may also want to share it with a friend or a family member, because many kidney problems develop quietly, and the knowledge you've learned today could help someone else avoid serious health complications in the future. And if you would like to continue learning simple, practical medical insights that help protect your kidneys, your heart, and your long-term health, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Every new video is designed to give you clear, research-based guidance so you can make confident decisions about your well-being. Most importantly, never underestimate the power of informed choices. A healthy future rarely depends on one dramatic change. It grows from small habits practiced consistently over time. By staying curious, staying informed, and caring for your body with intention, you are giving your kidneys the support they need to serve you well for many years ahead. And that means more energy, more independence, and more time to enjoy life with the people who matter most.